see so many participants in this week of activities. And of course, the reason for that this week is to take Arbor Day and turn it into an entire week celebration centered around trees. Most of us here are aware of the significant impacts which trees have in our urban environment, and depending upon which avocation and or profession you come from, trees have mean different things to different people. But I think it's fair to say that to all of us, trees do and are in fact very, very important in our urban environment. And so again, on behalf of the city of Seattle, it's a pleasure to have you here at this reception and program tonight. There's many parts of the program, and I know that you'll enjoy, or at least I'll trust that you'll enjoy every bit of it. But of course, the main focus here tonight is to invite Andy and Katie Lipkus from Los Angeles to share with us what they have done in Los Angeles on tree plantings, as well as to share with us some of their goals and some ideas of which we might be able to use in our tree planting programs as well. And now at this time, I'd also like to introduce you to Harold Tukey, Director for the Center for Urban Horticulture, who I have asked to say a few words of welcome as well. Harold?
Thank you, Jerry. It's appropriate that this event in the Arboretum would culminate a very exciting week, because this place has been called by some the finest collection of woody plants in western North America. And with the sun out and looking out the windows, you'll see why it has that reputation. Because suddenly the Arboretum is in bloom, and suddenly everybody is here. And it is indeed a fine collection and a good place to commemorate this Arbor Week and Arbor Fest. We in the Center and the University are very pleased to be co-sponsored this event, and certainly want to give congratulations to Jerry and to his staff. And I also want to acknowledge our own staff. Ann Bobbitt, you can take a smile, and all your people for your part in this event. And certainly, since I have the pleasure of being director of this fine institution, I can thank all of you for coming on behalf of the university staff that's here, that looks after the collections, and all of the education that goes on at the Arboretum. I can also speak on behalf of a very fine city crew that looks after the sod and looks after services and cooperating in the management of this place, and also the tremendous volunteer help, particularly to the Arboretum Foundation. And the president is here, Elizabeth Moses, and the building you sit in, of course, is a volunteer effort. So the activities of University City, the Arboretum Foundation, also are commemorated when you're talking about trees, and that's all part of it as well. We're glad to have been part of it. I welcome you to this magnificent tree place, and I'm very glad that we've been part of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Throughout this last year in Olympia with our legislative session, Representative Dick Nelson was proposing a bill before legislature which deals with planting trees to minimize or to mitigate the power impacts, or a better way of putting this, I suppose, would be to save electric energy by planting trees which would help cool or shade buildings. And I've asked him to be here with us and spend a little time with us explaining to us what that bill is all about, and maybe also to give us an update as to where that presently is at. Would you welcome, please, Representative Dick Nelson from the 32nd District.
Thank you, Jerry. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be out of Olympia, even if it's for a few hours. They released us on our personal recognizance about 4 o'clock, and so I'm here for a little bit of sharing of your celebration. I wish it had been more, frankly. I read the program, and gee, I'd trade this, or Olympia, for this anytime. And so this is, I wish this was a final report. This is going to be a progress report on some legislative work we've been doing. And hopefully I can give you a final report in a few days, at the end of next week. We were cognizant of the usefulness of trees with respect to energy a long time ago in this state. We knew that tree planting was a resource, an energy resource, and we wanted to do something about it, but we had a number of other energy resources in the area of energy conservation that we thought we would start with. In fact, we have a major bill this session dealing with new residential construction and ensuring that new houses are built to very high efficiency standards. But it's clear that the greenhouse effect and other environmental concerns increase the awareness that we have as legislators and the public has about the value of trees, both for energy and both for our environment. So before this session, Representative Nancy Rust and I got together. She's the chair of the Environmental Affairs Committee, and decided that we would try to put together a package of bills dealing with both environmental factors and energy factors as they relate to our global environmental issues, greenhouse, ozone layer, and even ground level air pollution. One of those bills dealt with the planting of trees by utilities, electrical utilities in the state, public utilities, and it simply said that they have the authority under state law to use ratepayer funds to plant trees to save energy and at the same time effect a reduction in carbon dioxide and maybe other pollutants that are a serious problem that result, many of them result from our energy habits, whether it's burning fossil fuels in electrical generating plants or the cars that we drive. That bill, a House bill, was introduced, and now I'm going to tell you the sad story. On 3 votes, we could not get it out of the committee that I chair, the Energy and Utilities Committee of the House of Representatives. People need to be encouraged to understand what's going on in their world. Some legislators haven't quite gotten there yet, and there's an old saw about who's leading. Is it the constituent or the legislator? And in this case, I think the constituents are ahead of the legislators. But Yogi Berra, I think, said, it ain't over until it's over. So we found another bill with a similar subject, Senate bill, and attached the House language to it, and sent that bill to the Senate as a floor amendment. That bill now is coming back from the Senate because they didn't like the amendment. They need some education and encouragement, but I think eventually, I understand that they will be more accepting because they want the basic bill, and that's a rule of politics. You often have to accept things that you might not wish to because you want something else. So they may not have come all the way on the greenhouse effect and the role of trees, but I think that they will accept the bill. So we are, with the passage of that bill, going to give all public utilities, municipal public utility districts in the state, the authority to buy trees, give them to the ratepayers, maybe even dig the holes for the ratepayers, and use those trees both for energy and environmental purposes. We also intend to work with the Utilities and Transportation Commission on the private side. We have big areas in the state served by private utilities through the least cost planning process that the Utilities and Transportation Commission uses, requiring each utility to have a plan that identifies how they're going to acquire energy in the least cost way. We believe that we can install some rules that will require private utilities also to consider tree planting as an energy and an environmental resource. How many trees and when we're going to see planted, I'm not sure. But I know that there are many areas in the state, urban areas in the state, that could benefit from shade trees in the hot summer. And if the greenhouse effect is as real as some of us believe, it may be even Western Washington
Tree City USA 1984. In 1984, my predecessor, Marvin Blatt, had solicited to and was awarded by the National Arbor Day Foundation our first Tree City USA Award. Since that time, we have annually been receiving that award, with the exception of the year 1985, I believe it was, when Marvin was very, very ill, and we sort of let the ball drop, if I could put it in those terms. But we picked the ball back up, and we're running with it. And tonight, to present to the City of Seattle the Tree City USA Award is Commissioner of Public Lands, Brian Boyle, will be representing the National Arbor Day Foundation. So I have represented our Commissioner Brian Boyle, as well as our Council Member George Benson, who will be receiving the award on behalf of the City of Seattle.
Unbeknownst to most people, the first city in the state of Washington to get a Tree City USA Award was Ellensburg. And there's a whole lot of requirements that a city perform in order to get a Tree City USA Award. And it's not that easy. And it requires, among other things, that the city put up $2 per capita for tree planting programs. And that's a pretty significant amount of money. I think Seattle was doing it for some years before 1984, but they weren't aware of the award and they hadn't applied for it earlier. Well, anyway, since Dick set the precedent of quoting Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again here. But in this last week, this week that's ending today, is Arbor Week. And during the week, I've traveled essentially the Lewis and Clark Trail. In fact, I've done it for longer than that because last week I ran in a good part of the Lewis and Clark Run that ran from the confluence of the Snake and Columbia Rivers to Fort Canby on the ocean. But this week I was in Vancouver, where they had an Arbor Day celebration where they're planting new trees at the Fort Vancouver site where the Officers Row is, to replace the big leaf maples that were planted originally in 1879, some of which are just getting too old. Now, to all you arborists, big leaf maples aren't normally planted in the city of Vancouver, but they are in the Officers Row area where there's not very many houses. But I went from there to Kennewick, where they're starting a new arboretum in an area that really doesn't have very many trees, but they're putting together a demonstration arboretum of trees that grow well in that area to give people an opportunity to come and look at what does grow well and choose and select trees that will then be part of a tree planting program for the city. We've involved 400 grade schools this past week and over 100,000 pupils. And between the Department of Natural Resources, the U.S. Forest Service, Keep Washington Green, and others, we've planted 370,000 trees around Washington State. Well, I can't guarantee we've planted them all, but at least we've distributed 370,000 trees, and you hope they got planted. We are the planters ourselves of about 11 million trees from the Department of Natural Resources, mostly coniferous trees, obviously. But we're very much a part of this, the system that has to keep Washington green and the system that has to keep Washington rejuvenated. And in that travel through the Columbia River, from Kennewick through Vancouver at least, and along the Columbia River, what struck me is that the most valuable resource we have in this state is water. And generally around here, we think it's the Puget Sound or Lake Washington. But in reality, I suspect the most valuable resource the state has is the Columbia River, because it really kind of traces the state of Washington from north to south, and then from east to west, and then back a little north, and finally west. And if we aren't taking care of the uplands, and if we aren't planting the trees, and if we aren't maintaining the soil resources and the resources that everything else depends on, then we're not protecting the water resource. And I guess in conclusion, what I would say about this is that Um, You know, public lands constitute a lot of things, but one of the most important is the land that lies underneath water. About 2 million acres happen to belong to all of us. The public lands, the shorelands and the tidelands and the beds of navigable waters. And because water runs downhill, virtually everything that pollutes ends up polluting public lands. And the tree planting programs, the sorts of things that the city of Seattle are doing and protecting are tremendously integral to the protection of that most important public resource that we have, which is the water resource and the land that depends on the water resource. So it's a lot, I take a lot of pleasure in giving this to George Benson, who I know from my own experience on the Seattle City Council is one of those people that really cares about the environment and has his own sets of contributions that he makes to environmental quality in the city of Seattle and even to the rest of the state. And so I can't imagine anybody I'd rather give it to than you, George. But it's sort of a flag that people can aim high. It's not the first one the city ever got, but we assume that they're wearing one out each year. And there's some other things that go along with it that Jerry knows all about and he'll take care of. So.
You mentioned water. I just happen to be the chairman of the Environmental Management Committee who has charge of the water. And we have another great river called the Cedar. It produces excellent water, and we want to protect the Cedar River watershed the best we can. But you and I have worked on shorelines together many times, and I can't say enough about Brian's cooperation when it comes to the shorelines of our area around the canal, Lake Washington, Lake Union, and the central waterfront of our city. You have to have that cooperation in which to develop in a wise manner. And we're very fortunate to have Brian as our land commissioner. Well, you know, I start to think about nostalgia or history, and Mrs. Myrtle Edwards, who planted the first trees on 3rd and 5th Avenue for Century 21, which were gateways to the center grounds. And then she also asked to do a Mercer Street and Denny Way, which we did also. And then Bruce Chapman came along in 1968 and 9 and started 35th Northeast. And there isn't hardly a more beautiful street in the city than 35th Northeast, north of 85th Street. And we went on from there. And when I got on the council, the engineering department took me to Green Lake, to Wallingford, and other places to plant the first trees. Greenwood was another one. And so it's been an ongoing program. And it's a pleasure to be a member of the city council that is as sensitive to the environment as it is. And I can't thank you enough for this award. We will try and get it next year too. So thank you for being alive.
Well, we'll have to get it next year because it's my understanding, which next year will be our 5th year, that the 5th year there's a special plaque which is awarded. So we'll for sure want to be a part of that activity and those festivities. Also, my predecessor, Marvin Black, had developed a program called the Friends of the Tree Award. And this is an award which is given to those individuals who we recognize, we meaning the city of Seattle recognize their contributions in helping both preserve and extend and maintain our urban forest. Throughout the many years, we probably have had about 30, 35 recipients of this award. And I'm very pleased to tell you and inform you that on Monday night I was at a reception, or at a dinner actually, of where the Washington Nurserymen's and Landscape Association organization presented me with a $200 check to to be able to put all the names of these recipients on perpetual plaque. And so we'll be buying this plaque, mounting the names on the plaque, and then putting the plaque probably in the mayor's office, somewhere in the mayor's office, so that all of Seattle can recognize these individuals and appreciate them as well as the city has appreciated them for their efforts in preserving and maintaining and extending our urban forest. The first recipient that I'm going to be recognizing tonight is Cass Turnbull, or Plant Amnesty. Cass was once identified as a crusader and a woman with a vision. Her crusade actually is tried to encourage people to minimize and actually to stop the brutal pruning of trees that is happening on our trees throughout Seattle, whether it's our street trees or whether it's trees which are individually and privately owned by individuals. So Cass, on behalf of the City of Seattle, thank you for your how can I put this, for your crusade to stop such brutal and malicious pruning on the trees.
Thank you.
As you're aware, we are in our centennial year celebration, and as a part of the centennial celebration, I wanted to develop a street tree planting program which enabled and allowed residential property owners to be able to buy trees at a discount. This program was started by Swanson's Nursery 2 years ago, and I approached various other nurseries who own businesses throughout the City of Seattle city limits, and asked if they would also as well participate in this program. I did have two other nurseries which voluntarily solicited interest and wanted to participate in those programs. And so tonight, as an appreciation for your efforts to not only in your efforts to beautify the City of Seattle, I want to make this presentation actually to three individual nurseries tonight. The first one being Julius Rosso's nursery. And on behalf, I would assume that Jerry Rosso or Gene Rosso or both are going to be receiving the award on behalf of the nursery.
Thank you. We were happy to participate in the program. We love the city, and we love the beauty of the trees.
Good. Why don't you stay up here, gentlemen? Then also, the other nursery, one of the other nurseries which participated in this program was Magnolia Garden Center. Roger Wiswell, who is the owner of that garden center, also voluntarily or showed the interest in being a part of this program. So Roger, we thank you for that as well. Thank you. And then last but not least, we want to recognize Tanya and Swanson's Nursery for their participation in this program, and also not only their participation, but their lead in developing this unique program, which we feel very, we think it's just a real special pleasure to be able to work with your nurseries to be able to present such a unique program to the citizens of Seattle. So Tanya, thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate it on behalf of the City of Seattle and the citizens of Seattle for your contribution.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.